Marcus Chen wiped the sweat from his forehead as he adjusted the mining laser's calibration. For the third time that morning, the asteroid belt station Prometheus 7 hummed with the constant vibration of extraction equipment, a sound that had become as familiar as his own heartbeat over the past 2 years. Most humans considered this assignment a punishment detail, a place where careers went to die among the floating rocks and endless darkness of space. But Marcus found peace here, away from the political machinations of Earth's Central Command, away from the expectations that came with being the son of Admiral Chen, away from the weight of a military legacy he had never wanted to carry. Here he was just another mining technician, anonymous among the crew of misfits and outcasts who kept the station running. The proximity alarm suddenly blared through the station, their harsh red glow painting the metal corridors in warning light. Marcus dropped his tools and rushed to the nearest observation deck, joining dozens of other workers who pressed their faces against the reinforced transparasteel windows. What they saw defied explanation. A ship unlike anything in human records glided through the asteroid field with impossible grace. Its hull seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal, reflecting the distant stars in patterns that hurt to look at directly. The vessel was massive, easily dwarfing their mining station, yet it moved with the delicate precision of a dancer. No human ship could navigate the treacherous asteroid field at such speed without being reduced to scrap metal within minutes. The communications array crackled to life, filling the station with a voice that seemed to resonate from everywhere at once. The words were incomprehensible, flowing like water over stones, musical and alien. But then, as if reality itself was being rewritten, the sounds transformed into perfect, accented English. Greetings, inhabitants of the mining facility. I am Princess Zarahai of the Ethereal Dominion. I seek an audience with the human designated as Marcus Chen. Please respond and indicate his location so that proper diplomatic protocols may be observed. The station fell into stunned silence. Marcus felt every eye turned toward him, confusion and disbelief written across dozens of faces. Station Commander Briggs, a grizzled veteran with more scars than patience, grabbed Marcus by the shoulder with surprising gentleness. "Son," Briggs said quietly, "what exactly have you been up to out here? Because that's no human ship, and princesses don't usually come calling on mining stations looking for equipment techs." Marcus shook his head, his mind racing through possibilities and finding none that made sense. He had never encountered alien life, never participated in any first contact protocols, never done anything that would warrant the attention of royalty from a species humanity had never even known existed. "I have no idea, sir," Marcus replied honestly. "I've never heard of the Ethereal Dominion, never met any aliens, never done anything that would explain this." Commander Briggs studied Marcus's face for a long moment, then activated the station's communications array. His voice carried the authority of decades in space when he responded. "Unknown vessel, this is Commander Briggs of Mining Station Prometheus 7. The individual you seek is present and accounted for. However, we must insist on proper security protocols before any face-to-face meeting can be arranged. Please state your intentions and the nature of your business with Technician Chen." The response came immediately, the alien voice carrying what seemed like amusement despite its otherworldly qualities. "Commander Briggs, your caution is noted and respected. I come bearing a debt of honor that must be repaid. Your species saved the life of one who is precious beyond measure to my people." The individual Marcus Chen performed an act of extraordinary courage and compassion that prevented a tragedy of cosmic proportions. It is our way to ensure such heroism does not go unrewarded. Marcus felt the blood drain from his face as fragments of memory began to surface. 6 months ago, during a routine maintenance check on the outer sensor array, he had discovered something that still haunted his dreams. A small damaged escape pod drifting through the asteroid field, its occupant near death. He had acted on instinct, bringing the pod aboard despite regulations that required quarantine protocols for unknown vessels. The being inside had been unlike anything in human xenobiology textbooks. Translucent skin that seemed to contain swirling galaxies, eyes that held the depth of eternity, and an aura of profound sadness that had moved Marcus to tears. The creature had been dying, its exotic physiology shutting down from what appeared to be severe trauma. Marcus had spent 3 days nursing the being back to health, sharing his food rations, providing warmth and comfort while its body slowly healed. When it was strong enough to leave, the creature had touched his forehead with one delicate finger, and Marcus had felt a moment of perfect understanding, as if their souls had briefly merged. Then it was gone, its repaired escape pod disappearing into the vastness of space. He had never reported the incident. The paperwork alone would have been nightmare, and he knew that Central Command would have wanted to dissect both the pod and its occupant for research purposes. Some acts of mercy, Marcus had reasoned, were worth keeping secret. Now, as he stared at the impossible alien ship floating outside their station, Marcus realized that his simple act of compassion had somehow attracted the attention of an interstellar civilization. The being he had saved must have been important, perhaps even royalty, and now they had come to repay a debt he had never expected acknowledgement for. Commander Briggs looked at Marcus with new respect and more than a little wariness. "Is there something you want to tell me about your maintenance duties, Chen?" Marcus took a deep breath, knowing that his quiet life on the mining station was about to change forever. 6 months ago, I found someone who needed help. I helped them. I thought that was the end of it. The alien voice filled the station again, somehow conveying warmth despite its otherworldly nature. "Marcus Chen of the human species, will you accept our invitation to come aboard our vessel so that proper gratitude may be expressed? We assure you that no harm will come to you, and you will be returned safely to your station when our business is concluded." As Marcus stared at the alien ship, he wondered if he was about to make the best or worst decision of his life. But the memory of those galaxy-filled eyes and the profound gratitude he had felt in that moment of connection made the choice clear. "Tell them yes," he said quietly to Commander Briggs. "Tell them I'll come." The transport shuttle that arrived to collect Marcus defied every principle of human engineering. It moved through space without visible propulsion, its surface rippling like disturbed water, while maintaining perfect structural integrity. As Marcus approached the craft in his environmental suit, he felt a strange tingling sensation, as if the very air around the vessel was charged with unfamiliar energy. The shuttle's entrance sealed behind him with a sound like distant wind chimes, and immediately Marcus found himself in an atmosphere he could breathe. His suit's sensors went haywire, detecting elements that shouldn't exist and energy readings that made no logical sense. When he removed his helmet, the air tasted of starlight and distant oceans. The interior of the shuttle was a marvel of organic architecture. Walls curved and flowed like frozen waves, embedded with what appeared to be living crystal formations that pulsed with gentle bioluminescence. There were no visible controls or displays, yet Marcus could feel the craft responding to unseen guidance as it glided toward the massive alien vessel. Princess Zara High awaited him in what could only be described as a garden suspended in space. The chamber was vast, its transparent walls offering a panoramic view of the asteroid field and distant stars. But within this cosmic greenhouse, impossible flowers bloomed in defiance of physics, their petals catching and reflecting light that seemed to come from within their own molecular structure. The princess herself was breathtaking in a way that transcended physical beauty. Her skin held the same translucent quality as the being Marcus had saved. But where his patient had been fragile and dying, Zarahai radiated power and vitality. She stood nearly 7 feet tall, her limbs graceful and elongated, her face bearing features that were almost human, but refined to an otherworldly perfection. Her eyes were the most striking aspect of her appearance. They held depths that seemed to contain entire nebulae, swirling with colors that had no names in human language. When she looked at Marcus, he felt as though she was seeing not just his present self, but every choice he had ever made and every path his life might yet take. "Marcus Chen," she said, her voice carrying harmonics that resonated in his bones, "you stand before me as one who has earned the eternal gratitude of the ethereal dominion. The being you saved, whom you knew only as a dying stranger, is my younger brother, Prince Kethamar. He was on a diplomatic mission to the Andorian Collective when his convoy was attacked by raiders from the Void Territories." Marcus felt his knees grow weak as the implications hit him. He had casually nursed an alien prince back to health, treating him like any injured person who needed help. "Your Highness, I had no idea. I just saw someone who was hurt and needed assistance. Anyone would have done the same thing." "Princess." Zarahai moved closer, her expression showing something that might have been amusement if it appeared on a human face.
That, Marcus Chen, is precisely why your actions carry such significance. In a universe where most species would have seen opportunity for political gain or scientific advancement, you saw only a suffering being in need of compassion. This is
remarkable among your kind, though we have begun to suspect it may be more common than previously believed. She gestured to a series of floating crystalline formations that began to glow and shift, creating what appeared to be a three-dimensional display. Images formed in the light, showing Marcus scenes from across the galaxy that took his breath away. Space battles between vessels of impossible design, worlds covered in cities that stretched from pole to pole, beings of every conceivable form living and working together in harmony. The ethereal dominion has existed for over 50,000
of your years, the princess explained as the images continued to flow around them.
We have encountered thousands of species, studied countless civilizations, and learned to read the patterns that determine which societies will thrive and which will destroy themselves. Humanity stands at a crossroads that will determine not just your own future, but the balance of power in this entire galactic sector. Marcus stared at the display, watching human ships alongside alien vessels in what appeared to be cooperative missions. Are you saying that we're being evaluated? That this whole encounter is some kind of test? Not evaluated, Marcus Chen observed. Your species has developed faster than any we have encountered, reaching for the stars despite your relatively primitive technology and short lifespans. But rapid growth brings dangers. Some civilizations become aggressive, seeking to dominate others through force. Others become isolationist, turning inward and stagnating. A few find the balance between ambition and wisdom that allows them to become part of something greater. The princess moved to what appeared to be a control interface made of living light, her fingers dancing through patterns that caused the garden around them to shift and change. New flowers bloomed instantly, their colors shifting to match her emotional state. Marcus realized that everything in this chamber was connected to her thoughts and feelings, responding to her presence like an extension of her own body. Your act of mercy toward my brother represents the highest values of your species, she continued. Compassion without expectation of reward, courage without consideration of personal cost, wisdom to act according to conscience rather than protocol. These are the qualities that mark a civilization ready for true partnership among the stars. Marcus felt overwhelmed by the scope of what she was describing. But I'm nobody special. I'm just a mining technician who got exiled to an asteroid station because I couldn't handle military life. There are billions of humans who would have done what I did, probably better. Princess Zarahai's expression grew more serious, and the flowers around them shifted to deeper, more contemplative colors. That humility, too, is significant. The beings we have encountered who truly understand their own worth rarely overestimate it. But you underestimate the rarity of your actions. My brother's escape pod was detected by 17 different vessels before you found it. 12 were human ships. 5 belonged to other species. Of those 17, 16 performed sensor scans and continued on their way. Only you stopped to investigate. Only you chose to help. The weight of this revelation settled on Marcus like a physical burden. 16 other opportunities for someone to save Prince Kethmar, and all of them had passed by. What did that say about his own species? What did it say about the universe in general? I see the doubt in your thoughts, the princess said gently. Do not judge your kind too harshly based on the actions of a few. Those who failed to stop may have had urgent missions, limited resources, or simply feared the unknown. The important truth is that when compassion was needed, it was found. When courage was required, it was present. When wisdom was called for, it answered. These qualities exist within humanity, waiting to be cultivated and encouraged. She moved to a wall that displayed star charts showing the local galactic region, with trade routes and territorial boundaries marked in flowing script that hurt Marcus's eyes to look at directly. The reward I wish to bestow upon you is not merely personal recognition, though you will receive that as well. I offer you the chance to help guide your species toward the future that awaits them among the stars. Marcus stared at the star charts, trying to comprehend the magnitude of what she was suggesting. His quiet life on the mining station suddenly seemed very far away and very small, but he was beginning to understand that some choices, once made, changed everything that came after. Princess Zarahai led Marcus through corridors that seemed to exist in a state between dream and reality. The walls shifted and flowed around them, sometimes transparent to reveal the vast cosmos beyond, other times opaque and covered with moving patterns that told stories in languages Marcus couldn't understand, but somehow felt in his soul. The ship itself appeared to be alive, responding to their presence with subtle changes in lighting and atmosphere. They entered a chamber that defied the laws of physics so completely that Marcus had to grip a nearby surface to maintain his balance. The room extended in all directions beyond what the ship's external dimensions should have allowed, creating a space that felt infinite despite being clearly enclosed. At the center of this impossible geometry stood a figure that Marcus recognized with a shock of emotion. Prince Kethamar appeared exactly as Marcus remembered him from those 3 desperate days on the mining station, but restored to full health and vitality. The alien prince's translucent skin now glowed with inner light, his galaxy-filled eyes bright with intelligence and warmth. When he saw Marcus, his face transformed with an expression of joy so profound that it brought tears to the human's eyes. "My friend," Prince Kethamar said, moving forward with fluid grace, "I have dreamed of this moment since the day I left your station. The debt between us can never truly be repaid, but we can begin to show our gratitude." The prince's voice carried the same musical quality as his sister's, but there was an undertone of deep affection that spoke of genuine friendship rather than mere diplomatic courtesy. When he placed his hand on Marcus's shoulder, the human felt that same moment of perfect understanding they had shared months ago, a connection that transcended language and species. "Your Highness," Marcus began, but the prince raised a hand to stop him. "Please, my friend. When we were together in that small medical bay, sharing food and stories while my body healed, there were no titles between us. You called me Keth, and I would have you continue to do so. Titles are useful for diplomacy, but they create barriers between friends." Princess Zarahai moved to join them, her expression showing what Marcus was beginning to recognize as approval. "My brother spoke of you constantly during his recovery. Not just of your medical care, though that was skillful despite your lack of formal training in xenobiology. He spoke of your patience, your curiosity about his culture, your willingness to share your own stories and experiences. You treated him not as a specimen or a political opportunity, but as a person deserving of dignity and respect." Keth nodded enthusiastically, his eyes brightening with remembered warmth. "Do you recall the evening when you shared your family's recipe for tea? The beverage itself was foreign to my physiology, but the ceremony, the care you took in its preparation, the stories you told of your grandmother who taught you the proper way to brew it, these things nourished my spirit when my body was too weak to appreciate physical sustenance." Marcus remembered that night clearly. Keth had been experiencing what appeared to be nightmares, his rest fitful and troubled. Marcus had prepared tea the way his grandmother had taught him, with careful attention to temperature and timing, while sharing stories of his childhood on Earth's Pacific coast. The alien prince had seemed to find peace in the ritual, his sleep becoming more restful afterward. "I was just trying to help you feel less alone," Marcus said quietly. "Being injured and stranded so far from home, surrounded by strangers, it must have been terrifying." "Terrifying, yes, but also enlightening," Keth replied. "I learned that kindness is not bound by species, that compassion can bloom between beings who share no common ancestry, no common culture, no common language beyond the universal need for connection and understanding." Princess Zarahai activated another display, this one showing detailed analyses of human society, culture, and technology. The information was incredibly comprehensive, revealing a depth of study that must have taken decades to compile. "My brother's experience with you confirmed observations we have been making about humanity for the past century. Your species possesses qualities that are rare in the galaxy, but you also face challenges that could destroy you before you reach your full potential." The display shifted to show images that made Marcus's heart heavy with recognition. War, environmental destruction, social inequality, the grinding poverty that still existed on many human worlds despite technological advances that should have eliminated such suffering. It was a stark reminder of how far his species still had to go. "We have seen civilizations destroy themselves through greed, fear, and the inability to see beyond their immediate needs," the princess continued. "But we have also seen others transcend these limitations and become forces for creation rather than destruction. The choice facing humanity is which path you will ultimately follow. Keth moved to a section of the wall that became transparent at his approach, revealing a view of the Prometheus 7 mining station floating in the distance among the asteroids. The work being done at your station represents both possibilities. Mining operations extract resources necessary for growth and expansion, but they can also devastate entire star systems if conducted without wisdom and restraint. The same technology that builds colony ships can construct weapons of unimaginable destruction. Marcus studied the view of his workplace, seeing it now through alien eyes. The massive extraction equipment that he maintained daily suddenly looked crude and inefficient compared to the elegant technology surrounding him. Are you saying that we're doing something wrong? That humanity's expansion into space is somehow dangerous? Not wrong, Marcus, but incomplete, Princess Zarahai replied. Your species has mastered the technical aspects of space travel and resource extraction, but you have not yet learned to balance growth with responsibility, ambition with wisdom. The reward I wish to bestow upon you includes knowledge that could help your people navigate these challenges. The display changed again, showing star charts with routes marked in flowing symbols. Some paths led to flourishing civilizations, others to empty systems where once great cultures had collapsed under the weight of their own mistakes. Marcus began to understand that he was looking at a roadmap for humanity's future, showing both the possibilities and the pitfalls that lay ahead. But why me? Marcus asked. I'm not a diplomat or a scientist or a leader. I'm just a technician who fixed some equipment and helped someone who was hurt. How am I supposed to guide humanity toward anything? Prince Kethamar smiled, an expression that somehow transcended the differences in their facial structure to convey pure warmth and affection. My friend, do you not see? You are exactly the right person for this task. You possess the technical knowledge to understand the challenges we face, the compassion to care about the consequences of our choices, and the humility to listen and learn rather than assume you already know all the answers. The greatest leaders are not those who seek power, Princess Zarahai added, but those who accept responsibility when it is offered to them, not for personal gain, but because they understand that someone must act and they are capable of doing so. Marcus felt the weight of destiny settling around him like a mantle he had never asked to wear. The quiet life he had built on the mining station seemed to be slipping away, replaced by something vast and complex and terrifying in its implications. But as he looked at Keth's hopeful face and Zarahai's determined expression, Marcus realized that some opportunities only come once in a lifetime. Some choices define not just one person's future, but the future of entire civilizations. The revelation of the princess's true reward came in a chamber that existed at the heart of the ethereal ship, a space so profound that Marcus initially thought he had been transported to another dimension entirely. The walls, floor, and ceiling seemed to be made of crystallized time itself, showing glimpses of past, present, and possible futures swirling together in a kaleidoscope of existence that made his mind reel with vertigo. This is the archive of possibilities, Princess Zarahai explained as they entered the impossible space. Here, we store the collected wisdom of every civilization we have encountered, every choice that led to triumph or tragedy, every lesson learned through joy or suffering. It is the greatest treasure of the ethereal dominion, and access to its knowledge has never been granted to any being outside our species. Marcus walked carefully through the chamber, watching in amazement as crystalline formations around them lit up in response to his presence, displaying scenes from human history, alongside the histories of dozens of other species. He saw the first human steps on Luna, the construction of the first-generation ships, the bitter wars that had nearly destroyed Earth before humanity learned to reach for the stars instead of each other's throats. But he also saw futures that had not yet come to pass, potential timelines where humanity either rose to incredible heights or fell to devastating lows. In one crystal, human cities covered entire planets in harmony with their environments. In another, those same worlds lay barren and lifeless, consumed by the unchecked hunger for resources. Prince Kethmar joined them, his expression solemn with the weight of what they were sharing. The knowledge contained here represents the experiences of over 3,000 different species across 50 millennia of galactic history. Some evolved from prey animals and learned cooperation as a survival mechanism. Others descended from predators and had to overcome their aggressive instincts. A few, like humanity, developed from generalists who could choose either path depending on circumstances. The pattern is always the same, Princess Zarahai continued, gesturing to a section of crystals that showed recurring themes across multiple civilizations. There comes a moment in every species' development when they must choose between expansion and wisdom, between taking what they can and building what they should. Those who choose poorly never get a second chance. Marcus studied the displays, seeing pattern after pattern of civilizations that had made the wrong choice. Some had turned conquest into an art form, spreading across the galaxy like a plague until they had nothing left to consume but each other. Others had focused so intensely on technological advancement that they forgot to advance emotionally or spiritually, creating wonders that they were too stunted to appreciate. But some succeeded, he observed, pointing to crystalline displays that showed thriving interstellar civilizations, beings of different species working together to create marvels that neither could have achieved alone. These ones figured it out somehow. Indeed, Zarahai said with approval. And the common factor among all successful transitions is the presence of individuals who could bridge the gap between their species' current state and its potential future. Leaders who understood that true strength comes not from the ability to take, but from the wisdom to know when to give. They moved deeper into the archive, approaching a section where the crystals pulsed with a warm, golden light that seemed to resonate with something deep in Marcus's chest. When Princess Zarahai placed her hand on the largest formation, the entire chamber filled with music that spoke directly to the soul. "This," she said reverently, "is the record of my own people's transformation. 47,000 years ago, the ethereal stood where humanity stands now. We had developed space travel, established colonies on multiple worlds, and begun to encounter other species. We faced the same choice that confronts your people today. The crystals showed scenes of ancient ethereal society, beings who looked much like Princess Zarahai and Prince Kethmar, but somehow seemed harder, more aggressive, their translucent features sharp with ambition and barely restrained violence." Marcus watched as their fleets spread across star systems, claiming resources and territory with the same ruthless efficiency that had marked humanity's own expansion. "We chose conquest initially," Prince Kethmar admitted, his voice heavy with ancestral shame. "For 3 centuries we took what we wanted and destroyed any who opposed us. We told ourselves that our superior technology and longer lifespans made us the natural rulers of our galactic region. The displays shifted to show the consequences of that choice. Wars that devastated entire sectors, species driven to extinction by ethereal expansion, a civilization that grew ever more powerful, but also ever more isolated as the galaxy united against them." Marcus could see the parallels to humanity's own violent history, the same patterns of rationalization and brutality that had nearly destroyed his species before they learned to reach beyond their own world. "What changed?" Marcus asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. Princess Zarahai moved to another section of crystals, these ones glowing with softer, more complex hues that seemed to contain entire emotional spectrums within their light. A single act of unexpected kindness from a member of a species we had conquered. An individual who had every reason to hate us chose instead to save the life of an ethereal child who had been injured in one of our raids. The parallels to Marcus's own situation were unmistakable, and he felt a chill of recognition run down his spine. "They saved Prince Kethmar's equivalent. My ancestor, Prince Zenthkai," Kethmar confirmed. "The being who saved him was named Korthak, a member of a species we had driven to the edge of extinction. Korthak could have let the prince die, could have claimed revenge for countless injustices. Instead, he chose mercy, and that choice changed the course of our entire civilization." The crystals showed the aftermath of that decision, how the rescued prince became an advocate for change within ethereal society, how his testimony about Korthak's kindness began to shift public opinion away from conquest and toward cooperation. It had taken centuries to complete the transformation, but eventually the ethereals had evolved from galactic conquerors to what they were today, guardians and guides for younger civilizations. "The reward I offer you, Marcus Chen, is the chance to be for your people what Korthak was for mine," Princess Zarahai said solemnly, "not through grand gestures or political maneuvering, but through the same simple acts of wisdom and compassion that marked your rescue of my brother. We offer you access to this archive, to the collective wisdom of thousands of civilizations, so that humanity might learn from their successes and avoid their failures. Marcus felt the enormity of the offer settle over him like a physical weight. The knowledge contained in this chamber could revolutionize human understanding of space travel, resource management, interspecies relations, and countless other fields. But more than that, it offered humanity a chance to skip past the devastating mistakes that had destroyed so many other civilizations. "But I'm still just one person," he protested. "How can I possibly convince 7 billion humans to change the course of their entire civilization?" Prince Kethamar placed a gentle hand on Marcus's shoulder, his galaxy-filled eyes warm with understanding. "The same way Korthak changed ours, my friend. One act of kindness at a time, one moment of wisdom at a time, one choice to do what is right rather than what is easy. Civilizations are not changed by force or proclamation, but by individuals who demonstrate through their actions what is possible." As Marcus stood in the heart of the archive of possibilities, surrounded by the distilled wisdom of ages, he began to understand that his quiet life on the mining station had been preparation for this moment. Every act of kindness, every time he had chosen to help rather than ignore, every decision to do his job with care and precision rather than mere competence, had been building toward this choice. The princess was offering him more than knowledge. She was offering him the chance to help guide humanity's evolution from a species that took what it could to one that gave what it should. The responsibility was terrifying, but so was the alternative of watching his people repeat the mistakes that had destroyed countless others. The moment Marcus accepted Princess Zarahai's offer, the archive of possibilities responded with a symphony of light and sound that seemed to rewrite reality around them. Crystalline formations throughout the chamber pulsed with increasing intensity, and Marcus felt knowledge flowing into his mind like a gentle river that somehow contained oceans of information. But the transfer was unlike anything he had expected. Instead of overwhelming him with raw data, the archive seemed to understand his limitations as a human consciousness and adapted accordingly. Knowledge came to him in dreams and intuitions, in sudden moments of clarity that felt like remembering something he had always known, rather than learning something new. He saw mining techniques that could extract resources without damaging planetary ecosystems, understanding how to work with natural systems rather than against them. Energy production methods that harness the fundamental forces of creation itself, providing unlimited power without the environmental devastation that marked humanity's current approach. Transportation technologies that could move ships across vast distances by folding space, rather than brute forcing their way through it. But more than technological knowledge, Marcus found himself understanding the deeper patterns that governed successful civilizations. He saw how species learned to balance individual ambition with collective responsibility, how they developed economic systems that rewarded creation rather than exploitation, how they built societies that honored both innovation and tradition. Princess Zarahai watched the process with careful attention, her expression showing both satisfaction and concern. "The knowledge transfer is proceeding well, but remember that wisdom cannot be simply downloaded into a mind like technical data. It must be lived, experienced, and integrated slowly over time. Do not try to absorb everything at once, or you risk losing yourself in the vastness of what you are receiving." Marcus nodded, already feeling the truth of her warning. The temptation to dive deeper into the archive's knowledge was almost overwhelming, but he could sense that such haste would be dangerous. Instead, he focused on understanding the patterns and principles, allowing specific details to settle into his subconscious where they could be accessed when needed. Prince Kethamar joined them at the central console, his own expression thoughtful. "The knowledge you are receiving has been carefully selected based on humanity's current development level and immediate needs. But perhaps more importantly, you are also receiving something that cannot be found in any archive: our trust. No species outside the ethereal dominion has ever been granted access to this information." "Why take such a risk?" Marcus asked, though he was beginning to understand the answer even as he spoke. "Because the alternative is watching your species repeat the same devastating mistakes that we and so many others have made," Princess Zarahai replied. "The galaxy is entering a period of unprecedented change. New civilizations are emerging from their home worlds at an accelerating rate. Resources are becoming scarcer in the older sectors, and the potential for conflict grows with each passing year. The archive shifted to show him galactic maps marked with territorial boundaries and resource disputes, trade routes under threat from raiders and pirates, entire sectors where different species eyed each other with growing suspicion and hostility. Marcus could see the patterns that Princess Zarahai was describing, the same tensions that had marked humanity's own history, now playing out on an interstellar scale. Humanity occupies a unique position in this developing crisis, she continued. Your territory sits at the intersection of several major trade routes. Your worlds possess resources that multiple species need, and your rapid technological development makes you both a potential ally and a possible threat to your neighbors. Marcus studied the displays more carefully, beginning to understand the strategic implications of humanity's placement in the galaxy. They weren't just another minor species fumbling their way toward the stars. They were positioned to become a major player in galactic affairs, whether they chose that role or not. The decisions your people make over the next few decades will determine not just humanity's fate, but the balance of power in this entire galactic region, Prince Kethmar explained. If you choose the path of conquest and expansion, you could trigger a war that devastates dozens of star systems. If you choose isolation and defensiveness, you leave a power vacuum that others will fill, possibly with far worse intentions. But if you choose the path of wisdom and cooperation, Princess Zarahai added, humanity could become the bridge that prevents this crisis from destroying everything we have all worked to build. Your species has the technology, the strategic position, and most importantly, the demonstrated capacity for growth and change. The knowledge flowing through the archive began to coalesce into practical understanding. Marcus found himself seeing solutions to problems that had seemed insurmountable just hours before. The mining station where he worked could be transformed from a crude extraction facility into a model of sustainable resource management. The techniques were all there in his mind now, waiting to be implemented. But the real revelation came when he began to understand the social and economic implications of what he was learning. The technologies in the archive weren't just more efficient versions of human methods. They represented entirely different approaches to civilization itself, ways of organizing society that maximized both individual potential and collective well-being. This isn't just about preventing war or avoiding mistakes, Marcus realized aloud. You're offering us a chance to become something better than we've ever imagined we could be. Princess Zarahai's expression brightened with approval. Now you begin to see the true scope of the gift we offer. The knowledge in this archive represents not just survival, but transcendence, the chance for humanity to evolve beyond its current limitations and become part of something greater than any single species could achieve alone. The transfer process was beginning to wind down, leaving Marcus feeling simultaneously expanded and grounded, as if his consciousness had grown to encompass new possibilities while remaining firmly rooted in his essential humanity. He could feel the knowledge settling into his mind like seeds that would sprout into understanding when the time was right. But the knowledge is only the beginning, Prince Kethmar warned gently. The real challenge will be convincing your people to embrace these changes. Many will resist, either from fear of the unknown or from investment in the current systems. Change is never easy, even when it leads to improvement. Marcus nodded, already anticipating the obstacles he would face. The mining station alone would be a test case for the new technologies and approaches he had learned. If he could demonstrate their effectiveness on a small scale, it might open minds to larger possibilities. But if he failed, or if the changes he proposed were rejected outright, the opportunity might be lost forever. We will not abandon you to face these challenges alone, Princess Zarahai assured him. The ethereal dominion will establish a discreet monitoring presence in this sector, ready to provide guidance and support when needed. But the changes must come from within humanity itself. External pressure, no matter how well-intentioned, would only create resentment and resistance. As the archive's glow began to fade, Marcus felt a profound sense of completion, as if a circuit that had been incomplete his entire life had finally been closed. The quiet mining technician who had entered this chamber no longer existed. In his place stood someone who carried the hopes and dreams of countless civilizations. Someone who had been given the tools to help his species avoid the tragedies that had befallen so many others. There is one final gift, Princess Zarahai said, approaching Marcus with something that looked like a simple crystal pendant but pulsed with the same energy that filled the archive. This will allow you to access the knowledge we have shared whenever you need it, and it will also serve as a communication device should you require our assistance. Marcus accepted the pendant reverently, feeling its weight both physical and symbolic. As he fastened it around his neck, he felt a subtle shift in his perception, as if he could now see patterns and possibilities that had been invisible before. The return journey to your station will give you time to integrate what you have learned, Prince Kethmar said warmly. But remember, my friend, that the greatest changes often begin with the smallest actions. You need not transform all of humanity at once. Start with what is within your reach, and let success create its own momentum. As they prepared to leave the archive of possibilities, Marcus took one final look around the chamber where he had been transformed from a simple technician into something approaching a guardian of humanity's future. The crystalline formations continued to pulse with gentle light, their stored wisdom now partially reflected in his own mind. He understood now that Princess Zarahai's reward was far greater than he had ever imagined. She had given him not just knowledge, but purpose, not just information, but the chance to guide his species toward a future worthy of their potential. The quiet life he had built on the mining station was ending, but something infinitely more meaningful was beginning to take its place. The journey back to mining station Prometheus 7 gave Marcus time to process the magnitude of what had just occurred, but the real test began the moment he stepped back onto familiar metal corridors. Commander Briggs was waiting for him at the docking bay, along with what appeared to be half the station's crew. Their faces showed mixtures of curiosity, concern, and barely contained excitement. "Chen," Commander Briggs said without preamble, "you've been gone for 8 hours. The alien ship departed 2 hours ago, and we've been getting some very interesting readings from our sensors ever since. Care to explain what happened out there?" Marcus looked around at the faces of his colleagues, people he had worked alongside for 2 years without any of them suspecting that he might be destined for something more significant than equipment maintenance. The weight of the crystal pendant against his chest reminded him that he now carried knowledge that could change everything about their lives, their work, and their future. "They offered me a reward for helping someone who was injured," Marcus said carefully. "It turned out to be more significant than I expected." Chief Engineer Rodriguez stepped forward, her expression skeptical. "That's pretty vague, Chen. The energy readings we got from that ship were off the charts. Whatever they did to you, it involved technology we can't even begin to understand." Marcus felt the knowledge from the archive stirring in his mind, offering him insights into the very equipment that surrounded them. He could see inefficiencies in the mining laser configurations, potential improvements to the life support systems, entirely new approaches to resource extraction that would triple their output while reducing environmental impact by orders of magnitude. But Princess Zarahai's warnings about the dangers of too much, change too quickly, echoed in his thoughts. Revealing everything at once would likely result in skepticism, fear, and possibly even accusations of alien influence or contamination. He needed to proceed carefully, demonstrating the value of new approaches through actions rather than explanations. "The ethereal dominion has been observing human development for some time," Marcus said, choosing his words carefully. "They're concerned about the direction our expansion is taking, and they wanted to share some perspectives on sustainable development and resource management." Dr. Sarah Kim, the station's xenobiologist, practically vibrated with excitement. "You actually communicated with them? What did they look like? What did they tell you about their biology, their culture, their technology?" Marcus smiled at her enthusiasm, remembering his own sense of wonder during those first moments aboard the alien vessel. "They're remarkable beings, more advanced than we can easily comprehend. But they're also concerned about the same things we should be concerned about, making sure that progress doesn't come at the cost of destroying what we're trying to build." "Commander," Briggs studied Marcus's face with the sharp attention of someone who had spent decades reading people under stress. "There's something different about you, Chen. You're talking like someone who's been given a mission. What aren't you telling us?" The pendant against Marcus's chest grew warm, and suddenly he could perceive the patterns of stress and concern radiating from everyone around him. Their fear wasn't just about him or the aliens. It was about the uncertainty of their own futures, the knowledge that their small mining operation existed at the mercy of forces far beyond their control. "I've been given some ideas about how we could improve our operations," Marcus said finally. techniques that could make our mining more efficient while reducing environmental impact. The ethereals wanted to see if human workers could adapt to new approaches, and they thought our station would be a good test case. Chief Rodriguez crossed her arms, her expression remaining skeptical. And you're qualified to implement these techniques, how exactly? No offense, Chen, but you're a maintenance tech, not a mining engineer. Marcus felt a flash of irritation, but then remembered Prince Kethmar's advice about patience and persistence. Change would come slowly, one demonstration at a time. You're right, I don't have the formal qualifications, but I have some ideas about modifications to our current equipment that might be worth trying on a small scale. If they work, we could expand the approach. If they don't, we haven't lost anything. The crowd around him began to disperse, most of the crew returning to their duties with disappointed expressions. They had clearly hoped for more dramatic revelations about alien technology, or dramatic changes to their situation. Marcus realized that their lives on the mining station were just as constrained and repetitive as his had been, and they were hungry for something to break the monotony. Commander Briggs lingered after the others had left, his expression thoughtful. Chen, I've been running mining operations for 23 years. I've seen a lot of schemes and proposals for improving efficiency, most of them from people who've never actually operated the equipment they want to modify. But there's something about the way you're talking that makes me think you might actually know what you're doing. I'd like the chance to prove it, sir, Marcus replied, starting small with modifications that won't interfere with our primary operations. If the results speak for themselves, maybe we can consider larger changes. All right, Briggs decided. You've got 1 week to show me something concrete. Pick one piece of equipment, make your modifications, and demonstrate measurable improvement. If it works, we'll talk about expanding the program. If it doesn't, we forget this conversation ever happened. As Marcus made his way back to his quarters, he felt the weight of expectation settling around him like a familiar tool belt. 1 week to prove that the knowledge from the archive of possibilities could translate into practical improvements for a small mining station. 1 week to begin the process of guiding humanity toward a better future. The pendant grew warm against his chest again, and Marcus found himself understanding exactly which piece of equipment to modify and how to approach the task. The mining laser in Bay 7 had been giving him trouble for months, its efficiency dropping despite regular maintenance. But now he could see the problem clearly, along with a solution that would not only restore its function, but improve it beyond its original specifications. More importantly, he could see how this small success could lead to larger ones, how demonstrated improvements could open minds to new possibilities, how patient persistence could gradually shift the entire station toward the sustainable practices that the ethereals had shown him. As he began planning his approach, Marcus realized that Princess Zarahai's reward was already beginning to transform not just his own life, but the lives of everyone around him. The quiet mining technician was gone forever, replaced by someone who carried the hopes of civilizations and the tools to make those hopes reality. The real work was just beginning. 6 months after his encounter with Princess Zarahai, Marcus stood in the observation deck of mining station Prometheus 7 and marveled at how much had changed. The view outside showed the same asteroid field, the same distant stars, but the station itself had been transformed into something that would have been unrecognizable to its former self. The mining operations now ran at 3 times their previous efficiency while producing zero waste. The modified extraction systems that Marcus had developed, based on principles from the archive of possibilities, worked in harmony with the natural mineral formations rather than simply blasting through them. What had once been a crude industrial facility now operated with the elegant precision of a living system, but the technological changes were only the beginning of the transformation. The crew of Prometheus 7 had evolved as well, embracing new approaches to problem-solving and cooperation that reflected the deeper wisdom Marcus had been sharing gradually, carefully, one lesson at a time. Commander Briggs approached Marcus at the observation window, his weathered face showing satisfaction and something approaching amazement. The quarterly reports are in, Chen. Central Command is calling our efficiency improvements impossible. They want to send a team of inspectors to figure out how we're doing it. Marcus smiled, remembering the skepticism that had greeted his first small modification to the mining laser in Bay 7. That single demonstration of improved performance had opened the door to larger changes, each success building momentum for the next innovation. The process had been exactly as Princess Zarahai had predicted, gradual, organic, and ultimately unstoppable. "Let them come," Marcus replied. "The techniques we're using can be replicated on other stations. In fact, that's the whole point." Chief Engineer Rodriguez joined them at the window, her expression thoughtful. "You know, Chen, when you first started proposing these modifications, I thought you'd had some kind of breakdown during your time on that alien ship. But the math doesn't lie. We're not just more efficient, we're actually making the asteroid field more stable as we work. It's like we're gardening instead of mining." The metaphor was more accurate than Rodriguez realized. The archive's knowledge had taught Marcus that truly advanced civilizations didn't extract resources. They cultivated them. They worked with natural systems to enhance and amplify existing processes, rather than disrupting them. The asteroid field around Prometheus 7 was actually more geologically stable now than it had been before mining began. Dr. Kim appeared at Marcus's shoulder, practically vibrating with excitement as she had been for months. "Marcus, the samples from Sector 12 are showing crystalline formations that shouldn't exist in this environment. The resonance frequencies from our modified equipment seem to be encouraging mineral growth, rather than just extraction. This could revolutionize our understanding of space-based geology." Marcus felt the pendant against his chest grow warm, and suddenly he could perceive the larger patterns that Dr. Kim was beginning to discover. The modifications to their equipment weren't just improving efficiency, they were actually enhancing the asteroid field's natural ability to concentrate and refine valuable minerals. Given time, their mining operations would become self-sustaining, producing more resources than they consumed. "It's all connected," Marcus said softly. "The energy systems, the extraction techniques, the waste processing, even the way we schedule our work shifts. Everything we do affects everything else, and when we learn to work with those connections instead of against them, amazing things become possible." The pendant had been his constant companion and guide throughout the transformation of Prometheus 7. Several times each week, it would grow warm and provide him with insights or solutions to problems that seemed insurmountable. But more than that, it had helped him understand how to share the archive's knowledge without overwhelming people or triggering the resistance that Princess Zarahai had warned him about. A soft chime from the station's communication system interrupted his thoughts. Marcus activated the console and felt his heart skip a beat when he recognized the harmonic patterns of ethereal communication technology. "Greetings, Marcus Chen." Princess Zarahai's voice filled the observation deck, causing everyone present to freeze with amazement. "I trust you will forgive this interruption of your duties, but my brother and I wish to check on your progress." Commander Briggs stepped forward, his military bearing asserting itself despite his obvious awe. "Your Highness, this is Commander Briggs. On behalf of the crew of Prometheus 7, I want to thank you for whatever you shared with Technician Chen. The changes he's implemented have exceeded our wildest expectations. The credit belongs entirely to Marcus and your crew." "Commander," the princess replied warmly, "the knowledge was merely a gift. The wisdom to use it properly came from within yourselves." Prince Kethmar's voice joined the conversation, filled with obvious delight. "My friend Marcus, the reports we have been receiving suggest that your station has become a model for sustainable development. Word of your innovations is spreading throughout human space. 3 colonies have already requested technical assistance, and Central Command is apparently planning to retrofit their entire mining fleet based on your designs." Marcus felt a surge of satisfaction mixed with apprehension. Success on this scale would inevitably attract attention that might be difficult to manage. "The changes are spreading faster than I expected," he admitted. "I'm concerned about maintaining quality control as the techniques are adopted more widely." "A valid concern," Princess Zarahai acknowledged, "which is why the Ethereal Dominion has decided to establish a formal cultural exchange program with humanity. We will provide technical advisors to help implement the sustainable technologies properly, while your people can share your perspectives on rapid adaptation and creative problem-solving." The implications of this announcement hit Marcus like a physical blow. Formal contact between the Ethereal Dominion and humanity would change everything. No longer would he be a single individual carrying impossible knowledge. Instead, he would be part of a larger transformation that could reshape both civilizations. "This is unprecedented," Commander Briggs said quietly. "First contact protocols, diplomatic negotiations, technology transfers. It's going to be the biggest event in human history. Prince Kethmar's voice carried gentle amusement. Actually, Commander, first contact occurred 6 months ago when Marcus chose to help a stranger in need. Everything that follows is simply the natural consequence of that choice. True contact between civilizations begins not with governments and protocols, but with individuals who recognize the fundamental dignity of all conscious beings. As the communication ended, and the crew of Prometheus 7 began discussing the implications of what they had just heard, Marcus remained at the observation window, watching the stars and thinking about the journey that had brought him to this moment. The quiet mining technician who had found an injured alien in a damaged escape pod no longer existed. In his place stood someone who had helped guide humanity toward its first successful interstellar partnership. Someone who had demonstrated that the simple act of choosing compassion over convenience could change the course of civilizations. Princess Zarahai's reward had been greater than he could have ever imagined. She had given him the chance to help his species evolve beyond their limitations and become part of something larger than themselves, and in doing so, she had shown him that the greatest rewards come not from what we receive, but from what we choose to give. The transformation of Prometheus 7 was complete, but it was also just the beginning. Across human space, other mining stations, colonies, and research facilities were beginning to adopt the sustainable technologies and cooperative approaches that had proven so successful. And somewhere among the stars, the ethereal dominion was preparing to welcome humanity as partners in building a future worthy of both their dreams. The pendant against Marcus's chest had grown quiet, its warmth now a constant comforting presence rather than an occasional guide. He no longer needed its active assistance because the knowledge and wisdom it had provided had become part of who he was. The bridge between species had been built, and now it was time to see where it would lead them all.